I want to thank you for joining us today via Zoom. Many of you know me, but for those that don't, my name is Susie Hoffman. I'm director of the Washburn University Alumni Association. And the Wake Up with Washburn Breakfast Lecture Series is co-sponsored by the Alumni Association and the Washburn School of Business. And it gives us an opportunity to showcase some of our most outstanding alumni. And when we hold this in person, I mean, typically our Wake Up with Washburn speakers here on campus, and then we also get them in the classroom to interact with students and faculty, and Dennis will come to campus a little later once things thaw out, and we'll get them in front of students and faculty in the coming days or week. But this week, Washburn turns 157 years old, and we're celebrating with our annual Day of Giving. So for the next 24 hours, the Washburn community will make an investment in the lives of our students through scholarships, program support, and capital needs. More than 50 student and faculty projects are featured on our Day of Giving website. And you can go online anytime today and learn more about the projects and make a birthday gift. Simply visit washburngivingday.org, washburngivingday.org. That site will be open for the next 24 hours, and we encourage and welcome you to go out and take a look at the projects and consider making a birthday gift to Washburn. I'd like to turn things over to Dr. Jerry Farley, who will share some Washburn updates with you before he turns things over to David Sollers, Dean of our Washburn School of Business, who will introduce our speaker today. Dr. Farley?
Hey, great. Thank you, Susie. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I've grown very weary over the last 2 years of this technology and having Zoom, but it has a lot of merit to it. We could not have completed that first semester, and really a year ago, we could not have completed courses had it not been for Zoom. And then we can do things like this, where we were talking just a few moments ago, we have people from all over the country that can tune into this. It wouldn't be able to have been here today if it was in person over in Bradbury Thompson. Nonetheless, I really do miss seeing everyone, excuse me, face to face. And it's usually a great event when we have it. We have wonderful speakers, and today is a great speaker as well. What's happening at Washburn now? Well, there's several things that are going on. First of all, we got through the fall term. Everything went well. We had very few problems with the virus. Usually we would have 3 or 4 each week that had tested positive and had to be quarantined. And then we would have probably a couple of dozen maybe that were being asked to self-identify and to make certain that they were reporting back to us whether they had the symptoms or not. But this year things went well. But we knew something was going to happen after finals, and then before school started again. All students went home, and they seemed to have forgotten that there was a virus going around in the world. And when they came back a week ago, we had the highest number that had tested positive in 1 week that we have had since this all began. But the great thing is that we take care of those students best that we can, and we have not had any that were admitted to the hospital at any time since this has occurred. So we feel pretty good about the protocols that we have on campus, and the students, for the most part, really help us by wearing their mask, and hardly any complaints about it. Now, Dean, you're closer to it than I am typically, but there's not very many complaints by students, because they know that if something gets out of control, they may not be able to finish that course. But there are other things that are happening that are equally dramatic. And the first of those is that the legislature is back in town. And so far this week, I have appeared before four different committees and made a presentation to each one of those committees, because there's always something happening that will impact Washburn. We're not a state university. We get very little of our money to operate the university from the state. But that little amount of money, about $12 million out of a budget of about 100 million, it would be very difficult for us to continue to do the things that we do if we didn't have that $12 million from the state of Kansas. And so we go down and we wrestle the rest of the universities across the state, and particularly the 6 four-year institutions. And we want to make sure that we get our share of the revenue that's coming through. Now, this year, right now, the governor has submitted a budget the first week of January, and has made an all-out effort to change some of the statutes that will permit the state to withdraw from any sales tax on food or food ingredients. And I have never really given that much thought. And two things occur. One is trying to have that definition. Getting people to agree on what that definition is very, very difficult. And second, the largest revenue source that we have, of course, is tuition, but the next largest is sales tax. So if they eliminate sales tax on food and food ingredients, we will lose somewhere around $4 to $5 million. So that's occupied my time, and we're making some headway. We've got some supporters in the legislature, and we're very happy that they seem to be hearing our message. And we think we'll come out of this okay. And I think it will be good to reduce the sales tax on food for the state. We have an awful lot of people that have problems just making it end to end every week. So that's what's occupying my time. The students are occupied by the new semester starting, and they're excited about being here again. We're just talking with our vice president for student life, and there are so many. This is the time that students now must file if they want to be considered and launch a campaign to be the student body president. And so that will be interesting and fun again this year for that to happen. And many of you, some of you, I'm sure, were on student body, student government, and it's a fun thing and it's a great experience for students. And so we're really happy about the excitement that people have about this. So perhaps with that, I will conclude and ask the dean to come in and give us some idea of what's been happening specifically in the School of Business, but also introduce our speaker today. Thank you for tuning in with all of us. David?
Well, thank you, President Farley, and good morning, everyone. It's good to see so many of you here online this morning. It's also been nice as I look at the names on the screen. I've got to see so many of you this spring or this winter, I guess we're still winter, at different events. We've been able to hold some events here on campus and have some other meetings, and that's been wonderful. That last year we didn't really get to see each other, and this year we get to hang out a little bit together. So I appreciate that. Last week we had a donor party at one of the basketball games for the school business donors from the previous year. And so it's great to see some of you at that event that wanted to come out and brave whatever the world is right now. So we were glad you were there. I had a meeting with the School Business Advisory Council last week as well. Ann Holting, who's on the call, I'm looking right at her. Ann is a chairperson of our advisory council. So she came over from Kansas City for that. So anyway, we're having some events, and In the Henderson building, Dr. Farley, I don't think the students complain about masks as much as they complain about, exams and homework and all those normal things. So I think things are going okay. I would like to talk a little bit about, today is our day of giving and the importance of that as a dean. And I'll speak for, and I'm going to speak for the School of Business, obviously, but I'll also represent maybe the other deans at Washburn. So much of what we do that's special at Washburn are the little things. It's the ability to do special things that maybe aren't in a budget plan for 5 years or something like that. Things that pop up at the last minute, or things that we want to experiment with that we're not quite sure will work. And the private monies that come in to Washburn, either on Day of Giving or just through the rest of the year, make all the difference in the world. Craig Heideman's on the call this morning. He's the president of Kaw Valley Bank. For many, many years, Kaw Valley Bank has supported research efforts of our faculty at Washburn. That's sometimes a little bit harder sell. Everyone wants to support students. Not many folks always want to support faculty. And Craig's on the call this morning. I want to thank Kaw Valley Bank. All my faculty that are on this morning have benefited from that in one form or another. We appreciate that. But today is Day of Giving, and what we're asked to do on the academic side is identify some projects or some things that we want to try to cover. I'm going to talk about just a couple of mine really quick. Some of them are leftovers or not leftovers, continuations from last year. We tried to provide the Wall Street Journal subscription to every student and faculty member, every staff member on campus. So that's something that I actually helped split the cost of with Maybe Library, Dr. Dean Bierman over there, and that makes it possible. We offer a chance for our students to complete a certificate in ethical leadership in their Principles of Management course, and there's an expense to that to a student. And we used to make students have to pay for it. And now we find donors that will help them pay for it. So that's the business ethics part of today's Day of Giving thing. Last summer, we were still able to get 3 students and Dr. Stoika over to Europe for about 3 weeks. There was a 3-week window where they could go and come, and they were able to pull that off. But again, providing those funds and scholarships to help support students who do want to travel overseas is important. So we have a Day of Giving proposal or a project that basically provides scholarship money for international business travel. A new one this year is supporting our new business data analytics program, which is going to be a very, I think, popular and very important program for the School of Business. Dr. Pam Schmidt and some other faculty members are kind of leading up that effort, and they seem to want to buy all the data and all the tools out there that are available that are kind of new to the school, and so we're going to have great support on that as well. Last but not least, there are two funds that maybe you'd like to support. One is just simple, the Dean's Fund for Excellence. The Dean's Fund basically is kind of our least restrictive fund in the school. Many of you give to it all year long. And I know I even give a little bit of money to it each year. But basically that's our fund that allows the dean to say yes as opposed to say no. And I see that I have several faculty and staff here on our call this morning. Most of them have never heard me say the word no. When they come in my office with a great idea, or they want to do something, or they want a new piece of software, or they want, usually my question is how much and what will it do for us? And then I make them sweat for about 20 seconds and then I say yes. But in any case, that's what we do. And last but not least is our business scholarships. We're blessed to have so many great donors, today and in the past who provided business scholarships to the School of Business. The story beginning of the semester, Amber, who works in our office, came in and said, or sent me an email and said, got a student who missed the guidelines for our scholarship awards by like 1/10 of a GPA point, and kind of had a rough last year, didn't have any money, was going to graduate this spring. planned on graduating this spring, but didn't know if she could swing the tuition to get through the spring to be able to graduate. Well, Dean, what can we do? And I'm thinking, well, 1/10 of a GPA point shouldn't stand in the way. And so we looked at her grades of the last 3 or 4 semesters. Well, it turns out she's a 3.5, 3.7 student the last 3 or 4 semesters. She's had a tough start to the beginning of her college career. So what did we do? We awarded a scholarship to her, and that will help cover her tuition. And in May, she'll graduate and go out in the world and become a productive person. So it's that ability to say yes to whatever comes through the door is important. And we sure do appreciate all the help that each of you give, not only to the school. Okay, and I've talked about what we do in the school business. Every campus academic unit has something similar today. They have projects, they have scholarships, they have things that they would like for you to support. So maybe you don't want to support the School of Business. I would like you to support the School of Business, but you can support someone else as well at Washburn, and that would be fine. So we appreciate your giving and your attention to that today. All right. I am honored this morning that I get to introduce our speaker. After graduating from St. Mary's High School, Dennis enrolled at Washburn University and earned his degree in 1988. While a student, Dennis was active on campus. He was a 4-year senator in the Student Government Association and even served as student body president. He was a member of Alpha Delta fraternity, Sagamore Honor Society, and was a homecoming candidate. And he was honored as one of Washburn's 10 best seniors, and even served as a student representative on the 87-88 University Presidential Search Committee. Dennis has fond memories of his time at Washburn. The most important was meeting his wife, Cindy Fox. He also remembers working with Dean Lloyd Dodson to design and raise funds to establish Washburn's Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Dennis has a background in dairy farm management and ownership, as well as banking and finance. He's currently executive president of the Dairy Farmers of America, the nation's leading milk marketing cooperative and global dairy food processor. Dennis has been with DFA for 14 years, and its board of directors has recently announced that he'll be promoted to the role of president and chief executive officer at the end of this year. And so Dennis will talk a little bit about maybe his Washburn experience and more about the Dairy Farmers of America. So in Dennis's honor, I went out to the kitchen, got some milk. So I'll be sipping on some milk while Dennis talks this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Dennis Rodenbaugh to our Zoom Wake Up with Washburn this morning.
Well, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? All right, everybody's nodding here. Well, good morning. I'm going to get set up here. I'm still trying to work out my technology here. I got stuck in Florida, so I was trying to learn how to use Zoom on an iPad, and that wasn't working. So they brought me up a laptop that I'm still trying to figure out here. So I do want to share a screen, and I'm going to pop that up real quick, and I'll put that into full view mode. There. Okay, is that showing up? Well, I do want to thank you, and Dr. Farley, thank you, Dean Sollers, and Susie and Julie. Appreciate all the effort in putting this together today. I'm sorry that the weather disrupted our plans. I think if we've learned one thing over the last couple of years, it's how to adapt to change. And for all of us who have done these virtual meetings over and over, probably the most common thing we've said, I think you're on mute. So we've been trying to work through this technology, and I think we finally are starting to get this down. I am grateful to be with you today. I've been asked to share a bit about myself, the impact Washburn had on my life, some of my maybe early career, and I struggle with ever saying I and me. I think about, anything I've accomplished in life has been a lot of we and our that involved, my wife, my family, good partners, team members of all kinds. And so I almost apologize in advance for using I and just as you look at this, there's 5 Washburn alumni here in this immediate family. And I saw a few names pop up even of some additional cousins here in Topeka area that are also Washburn alums. On the left-hand side is my mother, Doris Bowman Rodenbaugh, and I'm the youngest of 7. So I love this picture. This is I didn't get a chance to see her in her younger carefree days before she was raising 7 children. So one of my favorite pictures of her in college. She was a graduate of Washburn after she served in the Navy. And then to the right of her is my sister, Deb Rodenbaugh Schwab, also a graduate of Washburn. And below her, my brother, Daryl Rodenbaugh. And I think that's an older picture. I don't think he's still riding around in that Corvette with the sign on, but I thought that was a cool picture and I wanted to share it with you. And then in the bottom right hand is my wife, Cindy, was Cindy Fox, now Cindy Rodenbaugh, and we met at Washburn and Senate, and I'll share a little bit more about that. Dean Sollers did share a little bit about my background. I'll go into just a little bit more, and I'll try not to go into too much detail. I know we've got a limited time. I loved Washburn, I think, from the moment I stepped on, and I'm grateful to my brother Daryl who helped me get into Washburn at probably kind of a last minute decision, actually, and as well as helping me get into Alpha Delta fraternity. Boy, I think I was one of 44 total pledges that year. So immediately 85 pledge brothers, part of the campus family, and quite honestly, many good friends, close friends to me still to this day. And as you mentioned, I was with the Washburn Student Association, both as a senator and as a president, and what a learning opportunity to get to know other people's life experiences. And it was sometimes through disagreement, maybe, that we learned the most and about each other and found solutions. And so I think that's a great experience for all students. And then for me, and I started over on the other side of the school, actually, doing advanced chem and microbiology, and I do believe anybody can do anything with enough effort. But when I discovered the business school, I have to say that fit like a hand in a glove for me, and I never looked back. I remember just wonderful discussions taking place. Dr. Gustavus and Dr. Baker, we had good discussions. I remember talking about macroeconomic policies and thinking beyond just good intention to understand all the iterations, like playing a game of chess, try to think all those moves ahead. What are the unintended consequences that may occur? And I use that skill every day today, I guarantee you. And then most importantly, as you said, in my final semester, I met this positive, bright freshman, Cindy Fox. And I think it was after one date, fell in love with her, and we have been inseparable for 34 years, and that's our plan going forward. So I appreciate Washburn for that. So as Washburn had an impact on my life and my family, I would say that started even before I was born, hearing about it from my mother, and then getting to experience it myself, and then having other family members also experience it. I'll quickly share just some bits and pieces of our life before I came to DFA, and I know I was asked to talk a little bit about Dairy Farmers of America. I started my early 20s right out of college, working in mergers and acquisitions a bit, some investment banking, and then I took this sharp right turn. And as you all know, Washburn isn't necessarily known as being an ag school, but I took a turn and went into agriculture, relocating with Cindy to an area that I considered kind of the rugged flatlands of Western Kansas. I thought that would be almost an immersive learning experience for me, and it was. I was thinking maybe 1 or 2 years. It turned into, I think, 16 years. And our life became about land and cattle and crops and other agribusiness. And while out there, early on, a few of us began looking at ways to try to revive, kind of inject energy and enthusiasm into some of these struggling communities in that region. There was no dairy out in that part of the country, lots of feedlots, lots of crops, other things, but no dairy. And as you look at this, you can see, dairy is one of the largest U.S. and global ag sectors in the country. It was a perfect fit, in my opinion, for this ag-based economy out in Western Kansas. So I began traveling to California and other big dairy regions, and this early on was just a volunteer and a passion of mine. But I was trying to recruit and develop business plans, partnerships, trying to raise capital and put financing together, and to kind of present a vision for a new industry that may even attract manufacturing plants. So as you look at this over in the left-hand corner, you'll see a manufacturing plant. That's a plant that Dairy Farmers of America built a few years ago out in that region. Today, that area would rank among the top regions in the country with all the dairies that have moved in. And these plants aren't easy to come by. Actually, as I look at this picture, I apologize. That's actually one we built in Nevada, but the one in Western Kansas is almost identical. It's just double the size, and those are about a $500 million investment each. So that was a big part of my life. And in my 30s, I actually directly stepped into dairy, and that's what this picture here on the introduction slide you see on the upper right-hand side, going into a couple of different dairy operations, 2 different partnerships. I became managing partner. Cindy and I invested all that we had. We signed guarantees on debt, expanded one dairy to 5,000 head, another to 7,000 head, which was large scale today, I would say, even attracting tourists. But back then it was unique. That was unique size and scale. On one hand, it was kind of a wild west, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week type of business. And on the other hand, what is dairy? Dairy is about being calm and consistent, quiet care of livestock. You can see in these pictures, just pictures of some dairy I was involved in, but also some others too, just to show you we have PhDs that help us formulate the nutrition for the cows. You see on the right-hand side in the middle, those red buildings, those are actually methane collectors. They're collecting the methane gases and creating renewable energy, feeding either electricity back onto the grid or feeding natural gas to fuel vehicles. Solar panels are increasingly being put across dairies across the U.S. Robotics, that little red circle thing in the middle there, that's a robot that goes along and pushes the feed back up to the cows. Just automatically does that 24 hours a day. Even robotic milkers now, as labor shortages have occurred, putting these systems out where the cows can just walk in, get milked whenever they choose. It creates improved comfort and production. And then on the bottom left-hand side, you can see one of DFA's big loads, semi-loads that holds about 70,000 pounds of milk. And on some of these larger dairies, those are filled about every 2 hours, and many times they're to a manufacturing plant within about an hour. In my 40s, I will say, it was kind of a time for a change. We'd sold our ownership to our other partners in November of 2006. And I stayed on to manage for a few more months, not knowing that the following month would bring what was later classified as a 150-year blizzard event. This brought 90-mile-an-hour winds. I remember it blew out windows out of vehicles. It was carrying ice that would literally cut your face as you walk through it. Created 8-foot high ice drifts that completely encapsulated vehicles and crushed buildings like beer cans. And I don't know if I have time for this. I'll just say I can't describe, as I think back to those times, the 50 approximate brave employees that stayed with me at the dairy for an entire week. This was about a 4-day straight blizzard, night and day. And it was very, it was absolutely life-threatening for these individuals, and they stayed there to help, save the livestock and care for them. And I recall that what would typically be a 10-minute drive back to where my house was, and what turned into a 3-hour effort of trying to drive and walk to go check on Cindy and the kids. It was, in a blizzard, you just can't see, and you can't do anything that you normally would do in normal life. And so getting to the house finally and finding it encapsulated in ice, and actually having to break through the ice to get into the door, and wondering what you'll find. And there was my brave wife and 4 little children wrapped in a blanket and and no heat, no power. So, those were tough times. And one thing that hit me was recalling that my son saying, "Dad, I knew you'd come." And I was thinking, wow, I don't know if I did that 100 times, if I'd make it, one out of those 100. So I was fortunate. We were all fortunate in that. But after months of recovery and rebuilding, I received a couple of phone calls, a couple of offers to do some different things. One of those calls came from who was then the new CEO of Dairy Farmers of America. And he asked me to come and be a part of the new management team he was putting together. And I'm not sure I was in the right mindset, to be honest, at that point, but I said yes, because he said he wanted to take this business that, if you look on the left-hand side, in 1998 to 2007, I'd been a member owner. What is a cooperative? A cooperative is owned by dairy farmers, in our case, 12,000 of them. And so moving into the management side, we had, at that point, we were about a fourth or a fifth of the size we are today. I've been on the three or four now strategic planning refreshes that we've conducted as a business. And as we continue to improve our performance and to grow and to do acquisitions, and I have served on the acquisition team, our most recent acquisition of what was Dean Foods, the largest fluid business in the U.S. So we've had a lot of opportunity to grow and try to improve what it is that we're accomplishing for our members. I will say there's a picture there under Drive Performance. It's a picture of me, the creamery. So if you get a chance, Google the creamery. That was just a kind of a fun little pet project of mine. I actually went out there to Utah. We have a 60-year-old little cheese plant that sold some cheese curds out the back in a little store. And I actually flew out there to close it down. But I met the team and the community and fell in love with them, and got excited. And so we built this, I think, 12,000 square foot business. If you go online, you can see it. We ended up expanding it later. We serve Kemp's Ice Cream, which is a wonderful brand of ice cream, one of our businesses we own, put in a kitchen, and that's been drawing tourists. It has an experiential room in it, which teaches you about dairy from farm to the fork. And so that's been a fun project. And some of the things I've gotten to work on over the years as I've taken on one business and then another business and another. Most recently, I've been responsible for the U.S. milk marketing for DFA, our global ingredient manufacturing and marketing. And then, as Dean Sollers described, in October, was elected as the CEO-elect, and we'll transitioning as we speak. So what is Dairy Farmers America? I mentioned it's a cooperative owned by 12,000 U.S. dairy farmers. Our sales are maybe be in excess of 20 billion this year. That is impacted by the price of milk, and we will see a strong milk price, fortunately, for our dairy farmers as they see input costs going up. Approximately 20,000 employees now spread across the U.S. Just amazing people, great team members, as I think through working through COVID, and the people that continue to show up and work on the manufacturing lines and continue to make, we run 24/7, and not knowing all the details of what this COVID bring, that took a lot of bravery and commitment. And so just wonderful people, very proud of them. But our jobs aren't, if people think of dairy, and we tend to show a lot of pictures of our members, member farms, but the jobs we have aren't typically dairy. Our jobs are logistics, they're in marketing, lawyers, communications people, accountants. It's everything you can imagine with a company of our size and scope. We talk about, DFA is a leading global dairy company. It is number one based on IFCN's measurement of volume of milk being processed in the world. Number 3 in terms of total dollar sales. The important thing is not the size of this, but it's that we are represented on the global stage. We're the only U.S.-based company that is, and that becomes important when we're dealing with in behind the scenes in policy and in trade negotiations. We're at the table and we have discussions in that. So we have, Danone as a customer of ours. You would think of them as Dannon here in the U.S. Their product You would certainly know Nestle. Some of these others, I don't know, Yale and Mengniu. Friesland Campina would be a competing cooperative overseas, Fonterra a competing cooperative, but we also partner with many of our competitors. In order for us to do what we have to do, we do need to be financially strong. We're investment grade rated by Moody's, S&P, Fitch. And this is important. We monitor this very closely and want to make sure that we're able to have the borrowing capability and at the interest rates that work for our members. Here's just a few pictures of our new headquarters in Kansas City. Great place. It's kind of a modern farmhouse. Some of the beams and the pictures are actually from dairy farms in the U.S. Actually, the bottom picture in the center, it might be it's either in our Dallas kind of second headquarters in Dallas, or it might be in Singapore. We have offices in beyond Dallas, Singapore, New York, and we have 400 locations, but the primary offices I would say would be those. And then just closing the deal, I think it closed yesterday in Dubai, a project that I personally worked on, where we're going to use that to get into MENA, the Mideast North Africa marketplace, with that acquisition. So what is our mission? Our mission is to deliver value to our family farm owners as a global dairy cooperative. When you think about that, for me, I think about the nutrition insecurity. We've got 7.7 billion people, growing by 2 billion people over the next decades. Nutrition insecurity is such a concern, something that's very important. And for me, I connect the dots between these family farm owners that I just grew to love and to care for their way of life and want to preserve and protect that. And then you think of these families here in the U.S., globally. I talked to our lead global marketing person, Martin Bates, and he's been to some of these places where he says, Dennis, there's kids rummaging, trying to find nutrition, and it brings it all home to you that we serve a role in feeding the nation. And so everything in between that, for those two things, for me, is just it's logistics and processing and all of that. But this is the purpose and the goal. So as you look at what is our global supply chain? Well, it starts with us picking up milk from 12,000 member farms, nearly 7 billion gallons a year. We pick it up on trucks, deliver to either our manufacturing plants or to the manufacturing plants of our customers. About 500 different locations every single day, some running on our trucks, some running on others. We manufacture a lot of that and ship it overseas to about 30 different countries at this point, and growing. Certainly the export market is important. I'm sitting outside of a port today watching ships come and go. I serve on a number of boards as well as other members, executives of DFA, on the Innovation Center of Excellence for U.S. Dairy. I work with U.S. Dairy Export Council, the International Dairy Foods Association. I'm on the executive board of that, as well as National Milk Producers Federation. And what we do, and this is a meeting in the last weeks, we've been increasing the need and the discussions around how do we get these ports working, get these supply chain issues fixed. We have a great relationship with Secretary Vilsack, and we've had the ability to get in front of the administration, and we're seeing some improvement, but it's been a challenge. Quick review of our structure. I won't go into detail here. I'll just say on the left-hand side, this is kind of the milk marketing membership side. If you look at these, underneath our members, we have a number of businesses that we own, and if you think of it, services that we're providing to them. We own banks and a national insurance company that provides health insurance and property casualty and workman's comp. We have probably the broadest risk management using the CME and other tools, other markets to create tools for our members to lock in margins. So we do a lot in order to try to improve the livelihood and the margins and the sustainability of our members. On the right-hand side, as you move across, is more of our commercial business. You can see under our joint ventures and alliances, I don't know if you'd necessarily recognize these names. You might know Highland. We would be an owner in Highland dairy, you'd see that milk in some of the stores in the Topeka area. Leprino Foods is the largest mozzarella manufacturer in the world, serving most of the largest pizza. I'll tell one quick story as you think about the supply chain challenges that occurred during the pandemic, when everything just completely got disrupted and stores were empty and people were trying to hoard toilet paper and everything else. We were in a bad spot. We had a lot of processors that couldn't get milk through the plants, and while there was a big surge immediately with people pulling milk off the shelves, things pushed back on us. And across the U.S., we were dumping hundreds of loads of milk a day. And Leprino, at that point, being our largest customer, their cold storage, freezer storage was full. The customers were pushing back on them. And they called me and said, you know, we're going to have to cancel 9,000 semi-loads of milk over the next 90 days. And money-wise, that's about an $80 million hit, but environmental and every other issue that we would face, that was going to be a real challenge. This is where, you know, kind of our scale and scope and ability to reach out to partners comes into play. And so I asked them, do you think we could try to get, you know, the fastest outlet I could see what was still working was pizza delivery. Lots of people the restaurants were shut down, but people were ordering pizza. Could we get more cheese on pizzas immediately? Within 2 weeks, we had the first pizza chain that said yes, and then the second and the third. So we never had to lose a load of that milk. In fact, sales increased. They ended up taking a record volume of milk that year, and continued into the next year. And so we turned a problem into a solution. And those are the kind of things that we often try to work on. Our vision is enriching communities and consumers' lives through all the possibilities of dairy. So when you think about what are those possibilities, certainly you create things out of milk. It's an amazingly functional product. Cheese, yogurt, ice creams, sour cream, butter, all the things that you would expect. But you can also break it down into so many components and pieces. Think of milk protein concentrates, milk protein isolates, whey, lactose, cream, condensed, evaporated. We do everything that you can possibly think of for milk to make it storable, exportable, create the value. If you look at this, you think of cheese powders. We have a taste and flavors division where we turn milk into ingredients. And so when you think of eating Doritos or Cheetos, that orange thing you get on your fingers, that's us. We're to blame for those products. You think of anhydrous milk fats, where you can create the flavoring for butters, whole milk powders. We can take milk, dry it down into different components and pieces. You can make it mix better with cold water, hot water. It's the functionality goes on and on. Just to share a few of the businesses that are, you know, some dairy, some non-dairy. If you think on the left-hand side, these are products that we manufacture. We help formulate, along with Starbucks, the Frappuccinos, and we package those under the North American Coffee Partnership that we're in. Frito-Lay, you wouldn't think of Dairy Farmers of America being in salsas and that kind of thing, but we're the largest supplier of to Frito-Lay. We make all their chip salsas and cheese dips and et cetera. Various protein drinks. Bang was a customer, and we run into supply chain challenges and things like that where you just can't get the cans in. So the last couple of years has been challenging. On the right-hand side, you got products that are manufactured from ingredients that are produced within DFA. And then this is just DFA's house of brands, as we might call it. Again, I mentioned Kemp's earlier, wonderful ice cream. You may have heard of Keller's. Pluger butter is a product that we've made and is a nationally sold brand. A lot of these are regional businesses. True Moo, one of our chocolate milk drinks, if you've seen that. And this is a list that we continue to grow and expand. And then our customers, I can't fit all the customers on a page here, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of an example. Chobani was a customer that I was very closely involved with. We sold them their first load of milk as they were starting to go into business in the Greek yogurt side, and they're now looking maybe at trying to position themselves as public. So I'm not speaking out of school to go public. see Leprino Foods again there, and PepsiCo. So a lot of customers here domestically and also globally that we work with. And then just as I kind of begin to finish up here a bit, I talked about strategy, and I've been asked to take on the role of CEO. Be launching here in the next 30 days our new strategy refresh with DFA. We do this about every 3 to 4 years. My goal is to have it completed by July of 2023. And the emphasis on this is going to be taking all the attributes and capabilities that we've accumulated over these years. You think of our member footprint, 12,000 dairy farms across the entire US, our manufacturing network, 85 plants within our network, another 30 manufacturing plants within our affiliate network. You look at all those little blue dots across that's a new cold storage distribution network that we picked up on our latest acquisition. It would be the largest cold storage distribution in the world. And so trying to find how do we take those distribution from manufacturing plants to direct retail stores. How do we drive efficiencies, put more products on those, working even with our customers to consolidate and combine what's being put on trucks so we can improve the sustainability and the efficiencies of that. And then taking that to the global marketplace. We've been expanding. We've got more and more locations. About used to be 1 out of 7 loads a day of milk was being exported. Then it was 1 out of 6 loads a day, and eventually it'll be 1 out of 5 loads a day of US milk production will be exported overseas. So it's very important for us to be investing in those markets. And then I'll just finish up by saying our values. You can see our integrity, passion, quality, but one of the most important is community. And we recognize the importance of sustainability, the planet, and we're working to do our part in this. What you see on the right is these SDGs. This is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we actually have one of our team members in Rome at this point. The Vatican's very involved in these type of things even. But the goal here is, how do you eliminate poverty? How do you get to zero hunger, good health and well-being? These are important things. We're at the table on these kind of policies. We've been working in terms of improving and trying to eliminate food waste, reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. Dairy is responsible for about 2% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. We've made a commitment to get to net zero by 2050, to reduce by 30% by 2030. You look at these stats, we're doing more with less. This is showing 2007 to 2017, but I'll actually go back further and say if you went back 7 decades, there used to be 27 million dairy cows in the US. Today, there's 9.3 million that are producing 60% more milk than those 27 million. And if you compare that, in India today, there's still 58 million dairy cows. Now, the average herd size there is about 2 cows, so very, very local and close to home. For me, it was I looked this up because I was curious. There's somewhere between 50 and 60 million bison used to roam the US, to give you some order of magnitude. And then I was just curious how many pets. There's about 400 million pets in the US. So dairy struggles in terms of sometimes public perception and what impact are we having on the planet. We take it seriously. We don't want to be beat out by dairy alternatives. So, and then one last thing before I close out, I do want to acknowledge, I do know that today is Washburn's Giving Day, and it made me think of a story, and I'll apologize because I can't remember the exact details of this. My recollection is of the story of the successful businessman who had donated funds just to start a small, I think it was university in a distant country. Some years later, his fortunes had unfortunately reversed, and he lost all that he had once had. He lost it in bankruptcy. But in his twilight years, as the story went, he wanted to go and see what impact had his contributions made on the lives of the generations of students. And And he went to the university and he saw this vibrant student population and what the impact it had on them and on the generations that came before them. And he turned to his travel companions and he commented to him, he said, "It's ironic. All that I tried to keep, I lost. And all that I have left is what I gave away." And I thought that was a very cool sentiment. I have no idea, to be honest, if that story was true, but I know without question that Washburn University has changed the lives of students and has been a foundation within the community for generations. I can tell you that you know, today is in the day of giving. The gift that the contribution that Cindy and I will make will be in honor of two amazing women as we think about it. My mother, I mentioned, served in the Navy, Washburn grad, strong woman, business partner with my dad in different businesses. So certainly honor her and appreciate her. And then somebody that, you know, many of you would know, Dr. Mary Rowland. She did so much for me. She really tried hard to try to convince me to stay on some normal career path, something that wouldn't be the ups and downs and twists and turns. And she knew that I wasn't up for that. But it was always a comfort to know that she was there in my corner. And unfortunately, I think a week or two after I graduated, got the call that she had been rushed to the hospital, and I was at my brother's wedding out of state, and we couldn't drive back fast enough to get to say goodbye, but I did get to serve as a pallbearer in her funeral, and I was honored by that. So yeah, as Washburn touched me, it certainly has. So with that, I conclude my presentation, and I thank everybody for their attention and your patience with me.
Fascinating information today about dairy farmers and your operation. I would have had no idea. And what I really like about these presentations is, I mean, I'm sure that other people that are zoomed in today, I mean, I'll go home tonight and talk about this with my neighbors. And I mean, you'll talk about this for several weeks to friends and family that you meet, just, you know, now that we know more about your operation. But I'm sure there's some folks out there that might have a question. Right now we have everybody muted, so you need to unmute yourself. But please feel free to ask a question. We've got a little more flexibility since we're on Zoom today. I mean, we typically don't go quite this long, but you know, if you need to leave early, you can leave the meeting of sorts. But if anybody has a question, please speak up. Dr.
If I may, quickly, you have an enormous organization, and it seems like you trying to keep all those people thinking the same way that you do and moving in the same direction and trying to add value all through the chain. Did you learn skills here at Washburn that has helped you do that? I mean, it's an enormous organization, 12,000, and that's a lot. How do you do it?
Yeah, it is, and you know, we've effectively, and while we're going through the pandemic, we doubled the number of employees through the acquisition, and so that was an additional integration. We had acquired half of a business, Stremix, which is long shelf life. They package dairy and non-dairy, so we had acquired that business, and then on the heels of that, we acquired the Dean Foods, and so very quickly doubled the number of employees.
Wow.
So as I look at that, yeah, one of the biggest things that we will continue to be working on is how do we integrate those businesses in? How do we create this connectivity so everybody is kind of understanding we're all one team, we're all working together. Did I learn something from this Washburn? You know, one of the things you mentioned, student senate and student government, that was a place, to be honest, where I learned such skills, I think, and I mentioned it was through disagreement, to be honest. People that would come and have different perspectives and different life experiences, and you know, initially you lock horns and then begin to understand one another, and then you begin to work on solutions. So if I go back to something, I would say, yeah, everybody has their perspective. And so how do you bring everybody together into a common view?
Well, we still talk about that. We call it civil discourse.
There you
And
go.
you don't have to agree with everyone, but you got to listen to them.
Other questions out there? Surely somebody else has another question.
Hey, Susie, this is Shayna. Hi, Mr. Rodenbaugh. Thank you so much for being here today and talking with us. I actually had an aunt that worked for Dairy Farmers of America many, many years ago. So it's close to my heart. I had time to look up the creamery, and what an incredible little place you have there in Utah. What did you learn from that experience of opening the creamery, and do you anticipate opening more of them across the U.S.?
Yeah, I think one of the things we learned, and I didn't know if this would be kind of a unicorn business, and actually I think it was inspired a bit by a business that my dad had started early on, a little different scale and scope, but it was that open-mindedness to how do you turn a problem into an opportunity. And so he had started up later in life as kind of a second or third or fourth career, a little retail business that all of my family members got to work in. And so as I was at this little plant and met the employees, and you think about, you're impacting people's lives when you're thinking of closing down a plant. You go to a small community and there aren't all these other options. But it's all 20, as I looked up, 20,000 vehicles were driving by that I-15 corridor every single day. And I thought, what if we built something that people would actually come in and stop at? And what if we could teach them more about the industry and connect them? So what we learned, we've had people not only here in the U.S., but we track them. And so we as they log in, customers around the globe have come in. We created online marketing through this. And so we ship gift boxes all around the U.S. I don't think we've shipped anything globally yet. So you took a business, it's about 10, it's not huge by our standards maybe, but it's 10 million a year in sales and growing. And so we're looking at opportunities. How do we, as we take these different brands and these different manufacturing plants that we have around the country, how would we duplicate that? Maybe it wouldn't be the full restaurant, the full this and this and this, but maybe it would be ice cream, and maybe in this one it would be cheese, and maybe in this. So we're looking at that. We've gotten partial replicas of it starting, but we haven't yet taken the move to see if we would do 2, 3, or 4 of these yet, but maybe.
Maybe they're in Alma, Kansas. They've got nibbling good cheese curd up there.
They have excellent cheese curd there. I've had that.
Yeah, I'm out on the website right now too. I'm going to have to, if I'm ever in Utah, I'm going to have to visit that place. Super cool.
Say, Dennis, this is Jim Martin. I know it says Sandy Martin there, but I grew up on a farm. Is there still a place today for the small dairy farmer in Kansas or nationwide, or what's really happening there?
Yeah, actually, when I talked about so I came from, started out knowing larger farms, and that was kind of my original focus. But as I came in to work for DFA and began to travel the country and began to, recognize what we really have, we're primarily made up of small farms. We actually have members who milk as few as 5, 6 head. We have a number of dairymen who milk 20, 30 cows. The average size of the U.S. dairy farm is still only about 250 cows. Now there's consolidation taking place. A lot of it it's a combination of things. Some of it is being crowded out by urban sprawl. Some of it is because there's not succession planning. The next generation doesn't want to come in and work 7 days a week and milk cows 2 or 3 times a day. And so the industry is going to continue to change, but there's still going to be a place. And one of the things we really focus on when we're looking, for example, sustainability solutions, you've got carbon trading carbon credit opportunities right now where you can now, we're working on making sure that we have solutions for 200 and 300 cow dairies, new revenue streams that would help sustain them. a lot of our services really are built around how do we support them. You know, the big dairies have the buying capabilities. Small ones, we try to be the aggregator and help them with their costs. So there's always, in my opinion, going to be the opportunity for small dairies. But I do think there's going to be continued consolidation. Larger dairies, they're not going to be 20, 30,000 head dairies on one site, but you see families. And there's really not corporate dairy farming, but there are large sprawling families across the U.S. that own, you know, milk a lot of cows.
Dennis, I grew up on a farm essentially, and my dad one time decided that there were 5 children in the family, and we could do better if we had a milk cow and save money in the long term. Problem was, I never learned how to milk.
That was smart.
Yeah, the problem is that cow wanted milk every time you turn around.
Well, they're amazing animals. They're, you know, the dairy breed is a calm, loving animal. It's I've been around beef cows and they can be awfully ornery, but the dairy cow's a different kind of breed, and they become your friend.
You know, about back on slide 2 or 3 or somewhere, you had a photo of a cow, a calf, a cow, ears up and looking at you, licking her lips. You ought to use that cow, number 436. She had presence in the camera.
Yeah. Good stage presence.
Roger, you have a question. Go ahead.
Well, really a comment, Dennis. We were driving from Tucson up to Park City, where we are right now, I-15, and we noticed the creamery on the right side of the road driving up, and kind of, hey, that's new. And we will make a point to stop on our way back home in about a month. So.
Yeah, please do. They make it a little bit difficult to get in there because we don't have a direct exit right in there. You have to go through town, and so I think we lose a few. But we haven't talked them into making a drop in right into our store. But I think they like us, all that traffic.
Well, we'll drop in.
All right, please do that, and make sure you get some ice cream. People rave about it. Unfortunately, I will apologize. The wait is often 45 minutes. The lines go on and on and on. That's why we expanded and build on an entire ice cream wing onto the place to try to speed up the lines.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Susie, we'll bring some to you to give you in Tucson on the 26th.
Very good. Austin and Mariana Northern have a question.
Yeah, very interesting presentation. You really, we didn't know anything about the nature of this business and the scope of the things you're doing. So tremendously interesting. Thank you so much. My question is, I would like to understand more about the membership ownership structure of the organization. And I assume your businesses all intend to make a profit, and there is some sort of ultimate return there. And how is that return to the members? Do they have some sort of a dividend they receive, or is it just in membership benefits somehow? How is all that resolved from the operation of all these businesses and all your activities, and who benefits? Yeah.
Well, yes. So everything we have is owned by dairy farmers, and so when you think about the profitability, and yes, we do operate it. We're not a nonprofit. We do operate for profit. We need to, in order to justify the debt that we carry and the investments we make and the improvements we make. We spend about $250 million a year just in maintaining our manufacturing plants. And so all the profitability goes either into the members' retained earnings, or once a year we pay out an additional dividend. So if you think on I was going to say a monthly basis, but twice a month, each one of our members gets paid for their milk. We pick it up, we market it, and they get paid for the milk. The majority, I would say, of what we're trying to accomplish is to put as much value back into that milk check every 2 weeks as we possibly can. Our profits could be much larger if we wanted to try to pull profits into the commercial side of the business, but anything related to just marketing their milk stays with them. We don't cross the line and pull those dollars into our corporate P&L. The corporate P&L is made up strictly from our commercial investments and the profits that we derive from that. That comes back in. We use that formula to then determine, okay, how much patronage, how much dividend can be paid out to each one of our members. And so that'll be a single check that goes out once a year. And the amount that doesn't get paid out in cash gets contributed back into their equity. So if you think of almost like a mutual fund, it's increasing the investment they have within the cooperative. And then when they retire and they exit from the dairy industry, or they hit age 67, we begin also allowing them to pull money out if they're still in the business and want to continue milking cows. Then they start getting that money back. And so our members eventually get all of their investment back, their retained earnings back. And as a new member, if you were to start a dairy today and become a member, you don't write a check to get in day one. You just start marketing milk, and a portion of the proceeds are used as your equity injection. So it allows you to get in over time until you reach a certain level of capital, and then we stop pulling any additional funds, and then it's just returned back from that point forward. So it's complicated. I probably didn't explain that very well, but anything we make, our profits, everything we do, there's no stock dividends. We don't have stocks, so there's employees don't get profit sharing. Others don't get profit sharing. It's all the farmers.
Well, look, it sounds like a great program, and your dairy farmers and your members are all very lucky, I'd say, to have your organization and everything you do for them.
No, thank you. We're lucky to have them too, I guarantee you. So,
Rick.
Dennis, I want to go back to Mary Rowland for a minute. She definitely wasn't the dairy farmer, but she was awfully good to you, it sounds like, and as she was to many other students at Washburn. Can you talk a little bit about it? It sounds like she was a wonderful mentor, and some of the things that you've said are using phrases that a mentor would do. Do you mentor a lot of folks these days?
do I remember a lot, you say?
Do you mentor? As Mary, did you learn from Mary as a mentee? Did you learn from her, and have you been able to pass that along? And are you now the Mary, and you have people under you that are learning from you?
Well, I'm sure I don't do it as well as she did, but yeah, I would say that's a big part of my role in my life. We had board meetings, for example, this week here in Florida. We typically have them in Kansas City, but in January, we do try to create an opportunity where all of our board members are farmers. They're owners. And so they come to Florida once a year, and we have a business meeting here, and then we have a number of staff. So if I think about this week and in between board meetings, I'd say I had 12 to 14 meetings just with team members, with employees. Some of them just touch bases and how's life going, and some of them, unfortunately, I had one that was saying, debating about another career, and had an outreach from somebody looking, to recruit them. That's a big challenge these days. Everybody's trying to hire good employees. So knock on wood, I hope I salvage that relationship, and we're on top. But yeah, and it's probably one of the things I enjoy the most. We hire a number of interns every year, and I enjoy that, and especially the new employees that are coming in. You never picture yourself as having, I think of others before me, and I thought these wise individuals that had so much to give, and I don't picture myself in that way. But maybe in their perspective, maybe I do. I mean, like we all do, right? And so they listen, and it's a lot of fun, and it's good. I like watching their progress and seeing the maturity and seeing them grow. And so we do try to create opportunities to put them up on stage and to begin to present and to do projects. And I think when you accomplish, we're not designed to sit around and do nothing. We need as individuals, I think, to accomplish and to be useful. And so we certainly try to create those opportunities. And so, yes, I hope so. And it's probably a skill set I'll always work to try to improve.
Dennis, do you have any Washburn students that are interning with you?
I don't know right now if we do. I do know that we do outreach there. I can tell you one individual I'm very close to. He's actually and this isn't an intern, but he's our chief legal officer. He runs our entire legal division. Alex Batchelor is a Washburn grad. But we need more Washburn alums working at DFA. So we'll be on the lookout.
We'll remind faculty to get their students over to see it.
All right. Some people, I will say, it's one of the challenges we're trying to overcome. People see Dairy Farmers of America and they think, well, they're going to go work in boots and get dirty and all that. And so we've got to do a better job of promoting who we are and the business that we are, because there's unlimited opportunities, especially those that want to travel. The individuals that have raised their hand and said they'd like to work in Singapore and other places, those are great opportunities, and those investments will pay off the rest of their lives.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we wrap things up this morning? Anyone else? Well, Dennis, I want to thank you again. This is a fascinating presentation and great Q&A afterwards that gave us some additional information about your operation. And it'll be great to have you back on campus so you can share this information with our students and faculty. It'll be very important to get in front of them and share your Washburn story and your career path. And so, again, I want to thank you and want to remind everybody once again that today is Washburn's annual Day of Giving, and to go out to washburngivingday.org, take a look at the various projects that'll impact our campus, our students, and our future. So with that, I'm going to close things out today and thank you once again for joining us this morning on Zoom. And we'll have another Wake Up with Washburn in April. And as soon as we line up our speaker, we'll let you know, and hope you'll join us on campus for their presentation. Thanks so much and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.